My friend ruined my Christmas wedding, so I ruined her New Year's one. The red wine hit my dress like a crimson explosion across fresh snow. I watched in slow motion as the Cabernet Sauvignon, a 2018 vintage I'd specifically chosen to complement our Christmas Eve dinner, cascaded down the intricate beadwork of my grandmother's restored 1960s wedding gown. The liquid seeped into the delicate silk, spreading like blood through the ivory fabric I'd spent 8 months and $3,000 having professionally cleaned, altered, and preserved. Oops. Jessica giggled, swaying slightly as she held the now empty wine glass. Her mascara was smudged, her updo falling apart, and that fake innocent smile I'd somehow missed for 6 years of friendship was plastered across her flushed face. Sorry, Sarah. Total accident. The reception hall fell silent. 87 guests, I knew the exact number because I'd been planning this wedding for 26 months, stared at us. The string quartet stopped mid-note of silver bells. Even the servers carrying our carefully timed dinner course froze like Christmas ornaments. Accident? My voice came out strangled. I looked down at the spreading stain, watching 2 years of meticulous planning dissolve into the antique lace. Jessica, this was my grandmother's. God, Sarah, don't be so dramatic. It's just a dress. She rolled her eyes and turned to our college friend sitting at table 3. Can you believe this? It's like she thinks the world revolves around her wedding or something. I felt Michael's hand on my shoulder, steadying me. My new husband's jaw was tight, his usually calm demeanor cracking. Jess, what the hell is wrong with you? What? I said sorry. She threw her hands up, nearly knocking over another wine glass. Look, I'll pay for dry cleaning. Happy? Dry cleaning. As if 20-year-old wine stains came out of 60-year-old silk. As if you could dry clean away the fact that my maid of honor, my best friend since our freshman dorm at Northwestern, had just deliberately destroyed the most important piece of my wedding day ensemble. Because it was deliberate. I'd seen that flash of malice in her eyes right before she stumbled. This wasn't about the wine, or her fifth, glass of champagne. This was about me asking her to please lower her voice during my father's toast 20 minutes earlier. About me requesting she stop making jokes during the ceremony. About me finally telling Jessica Hartwell no after years of being her accommodating best friend. You know what, forget it. I lifted my chin, feeling the weight of my grandmother's pearl necklace against my throat. Let's just continue dinner. But as I walked toward the head table, my train dragging through droplets of wine, I heard her laugh. That sharp, dismissive sound that had been grating on my nerves more and more lately. I heard her whisper to Emma and Chloe, "Bridezilla much?" I mean, seriously, it's just fabric. Just fabric. I sat down next to Michael, my hand shaking as I reached for my water glass. He leaned over, his voice low and concerned. Baby, are you okay? We can go change, or... I'm fine, I whispered back, but I wasn't fine. I was calculating. Planning. Because Jessica had made one crucial mistake tonight. Her own wedding was in exactly 1 week. New Year's Eve. And unlike me, she'd been cutting corners, burning bridges with vendors, and treating everyone involved like her personal servants. I smiled and raised my champagne flute. Time for a toast of my own. The rest of my wedding reception passed in a blur of forced smiles and small talk. I danced my first dance with Michael to the Christmas song, feeling the wine stain pull against my skin with every turn. I cut our 3-tier vanilla bean cake while Jessica stumbled through her maid of honor speech, slurring about how Sarah always gets what she wants and how some people are just born lucky. Lucky. Right. By 11 p.m., most guests had filtered out into the December cold, offering congratulations and carefully avoiding mentioning the obvious burgundy stain across my bodice. Jessica cornered me by the gift table as I was collecting cards, her makeup now completely smeared and her bridesmaid dress, a deep forest green I'd chosen to complement the Christmas theme, twisted sideways. Sarah, babe, you're not actually mad about the dress thing, are you? She grabbed my wrist with wine-sticky fingers. Because you know I didn't mean it, right? I'm just so stressed about my wedding. Marcus has been such a nightmare, and the vendors are being so difficult, and... Of course I'm not mad, I lied smoothly, gently extracting my arm. These things happen. Relief flooded her face. Oh good. Because I need to ask you a huge favor. Our day of coordinator just bailed. Apparently she's claiming I was verbally abusive during our planning meeting yesterday, which is total bullshit, and I know you're going on your honeymoon, but could you maybe help coordinate a few things remotely? You're so good at this stuff. I stared at her. 20 minutes after destroying my wedding dress, she was asking me to fix her wedding problems. The audacity was breathtaking, even for Jessica. What kind of things? I asked. Well, the caterer is being weird about the final payment, something about wanting it 48 hours in advance instead of day of, which is ridiculous, and the florist keeps calling about these revised specifications I supposedly approved but definitely didn't. Oh, and our photographer is asking about some contract addendum that I'm sure I never agreed to sign. Each word was a gift. Jessica had always been careless with details, but apparently her wedding planning had been even more chaotic than usual. She was giving me a roadmap of every pressure point, every vendor relationship hanging by a thread. I'll see what I can do, I said, already mentally cataloging the information. You're the best. She threw her arms around me in a sloppy hug, and I caught a whiff of wine in desperation. I knew I could count on you. You always fix everything. That was true. I'd been fixing Jessica's messes since sophomore year, covering for her when she missed her internship interviews, editing her senior thesis at 3 a.m., lending her money that never got repaid. I'd fixed her relationships, her job applications, even her credit score that one time she forgot to pay her bills for 6 months. But I wouldn't be fixing her wedding. As Michael and I finally left the venue at midnight, he squeezed my hand in the back of our hired car. You're being really gracious about tonight, he said quietly. I'm proud of you. I leaned against his shoulder, watching the Christmas lights blur past the window. Jessica's going through a lot right now. She needs understanding, not judgment. Still, what she did was unforgivable. Forgiveness isn't really the point, I murmured, pulling out my phone as we drove toward our hotel. I had 7 days to make some calls. 7 days to be the helpful friend Jessica expected me to be. Just not in the way she was expecting. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up in our honeymoon suite at the Palmer house with wine stains under my fingernails and a plan crystallizing in my mind like frost on windows. Michael was still sleeping, exhausted from the wedding chaos, so I slipped into the marble bathroom with my phone and started making a list. Not a to-do list, I was done with those. This was something else entirely. First, I pulled up Jessica's vendor contacts from the group chat she'd added me to 3 months ago when she was picking my brain about wedding planning. She'd been so proud of how much money she was saving by booking cheaper alternatives to my recommendations. What she hadn't mentioned was how she was saving that money by being deliberately vague about payment schedules and pushing every boundary until vendors were ready to snap. I scrolled through months of messages, taking screenshots of the most telling exchanges. Asterisk Jessica, 2:47 a.m. on December 10th. By the way, the cake deposit bounced, but don't worry, my trust fund transfer is just delayed. You'll get paid eventually, lol asterisk. Asterisk Jessica, 11:23 p.m. on December 18th. Can we change the flower order again? I know I already changed it 4 times, but I saw these peonies on Pinterest and I'm obsessed asterisk. Asterisk Jessica, 4:15 p.m. on December 22nd. The photographer is being so difficult about wanting a signed contract. Like, my word isn't good enough? Some people are so paranoid asterisk. Each message was a small betrayal of trust, a little crack in the foundation of her vendor relationships. I wouldn't need to lie about anything, Jessica had created this mess herself. I was just going to help it along. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, asterisk OMG Sarah, hope you're having an amazing Christmas morning. Can you call Elegant Events, the caterer, today? They're being super weird about payment timing and you're so much better at talking to vendors than I am. You're literally saving my life here. Asterisk. Perfect timing. I did call Elegant Events. I spoke to Maria Santos, the owner, who answered on the second ring despite it being Christmas morning. Oh, thank God, Maria said when I introduced myself as Sarah Chen, Jessica's wedding coordinator. I've been trying to reach someone rational about this event for weeks. Ms. Hartwell has been challenging to work with. I can imagine, I said, injecting just the right amount of professional sympathy into my voice. What specific concerns do you have? Well, the final payment was due 48 hours ago, and when I called yesterday, she told me her bank was being stupid and hung up on me. Then she called back an hour later demanding we add 30 more guests to the cocktail hour without adjusting the payment. This is a $14,000 contract, Ms. Chen. We can't just absorb additional costs because the bride changed her mind. $14,000. I whistled softly. That's significant. Has she made any payments toward the balance? Just the initial deposit of $2,800 back in June. Nothing since then, despite multiple invoices and calls. So Jessica owed Maria's company over $11,000 due yesterday while demanding additional services. This was almost too easy. Maria, I have to be completely honest with you, I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially. I'm actually calling as a friend, not as her coordinator. Jessica asked me to help, but I think you should know, she pulled this exact same thing with her engagement party caterer in October. They ended up having to take her to small claims court. This was true. I'd even lent Jessica money to settle that case, money she'd never repaid. Maria's silence spoke volumes. Finally, what would you do, in my position? I'd protect my business, I said simply. You have a contract. You have terms. You don't have payment. After I hung up, I felt a strange lightness in my chest. 1 down, 6 to go. Michael emerged from the bedroom in his hotel robe, smiling sleepily. Morning, Mrs. Chen. Making some calls already? Just helping Jessica with a vendor issue, I said, which was technically true. I was helping Jessica learn a very important lesson about consequences. Over the next 2 days, I turned helping Jessica into an art form. Each morning of our extended Christmas weekend, I'd wake up before Michael and make my calls from the hotel balcony, Chicago's winter skyline stretching out before me like a promise. I positioned myself as Jessica's concerned friend and unofficial coordinator, reaching out to vendors who were already hanging by threads of patience. The florist was next. Petals and Stems, owned by an elderly woman named Dorothy who'd been in business for 40 years. When I called Tuesday morning, she sounded exhausted. Oh, the Hartwell wedding, Dorothy sighed. That poor girl has changed her mind so many times, I've lost track of what she actually wants. First it was white roses and baby's breath, then dusty pink peonies, then back to roses but cream-colored. Now she's demanding peonies again even though they're completely out of season. Do you know how much it costs to fly peonies in from South America in December? I can imagine it's substantial, I murmured, stirring my coffee. $847 per arrangement, and she wants 12. That's over $10,000 just for centerpieces, not including her bridal bouquet or the ceremony arch. But when I explained the cost difference yesterday, she screamed at me that I was trying to scam her and that flowers shouldn't cost more than a car payment. I did some quick math. Jessica's original floral budget was $3,200. I remembered because she'd bragged about how much she was saving compared to my over-the-top wedding flowers. She was asking Dorothy to quadruple the budget 5 days before the wedding. Dorothy, has she signed the revised contract for the peonies? She keeps saying she'll come in to sign it, but she never shows up. I've been holding South American peonies in my cold storage for 3 days now. If she doesn't commit by tomorrow, I'll have to sell them to other clients or eat the cost. What does your contract say about changes within a week of the event? 48-hour notice required, full payment due upon confirmation. Dorothy's voice hardened. I've been doing this for 4 decades, dear. I know when a client is going to stiff me. Then trust your instincts, I said gently. After hanging up, I felt that same strange satisfaction. Jessica had created this mess by being indecisive and entitled. I was just declining to fix it for once. The photographer situation was even more delicious. Marcus, Jessica's fiancé, had apparently hired his cousin Derek as a favor to the family, a 24-year-old with a basic DSLR camera and delusions of grandeur. But Derek had gotten spooked after Jessica berated him during their engagement shoot about his amateur lighting and demanded he bring professional backup equipment that he didn't own. She wants me to rent $8,000 worth of gear for her wedding, Derek told me when I called Wednesday morning. Lighting rigs, backup cameras, drone equipment, stuff I've never even used before. She said if I embarrass her at her wedding, she'll make sure I never work in the city again. The kid sounded terrified. Jessica threatening a college student with career destruction over wedding photos was peak Jessica behavior. Derek, do you have a signed contract with her? That's the thing, she said family doesn't need contracts. It was all just verbal agreements and text messages. But now she's demanding all this professional stuff, and I can't afford to rent equipment that costs more than my car. No contract. Impossible expectations. Threats and intimidation. Jessica had perfectly sabotaged herself. What do your text messages say exactly? I asked. Just basic stuff like, can you shoot my wedding and we'll figure out payment later. Nothing about equipment or specific deliverables. I almost laughed. Jessica was about to have no photographer 6 days before her wedding. Derek, do you really want to spend New Year's Eve being screamed at by someone who threatens your career? Not really, he admitted. Then maybe it's time to prioritize your mental health. After that call, I sat on our hotel balcony for a long time, watching people hurry through the cold streets below. Each conversation felt like removing a thread from a tapestry, watching Jessica's carefully constructed wedding weekend slowly unravel. But the best part? I hadn't lied once. The venue call on Thursday morning was supposed to be routine reconnaissance, but it turned into something much more interesting. I'd expected the Millennium Ballroom to be Jessica's one stable vendor relationship. After all, venues usually require substantial deposits and have ironclad contracts. But when I spoke to the events manager, Linda Kowalski, I discovered Jessica had managed to create chaos there too. Ms. Chan, I'm so glad someone responsible is finally involved, Linda said, her relief palpable. We've been trying to reach Ms. Hartwell about several critical issues, but she's been unresponsive. What kind of issues? Well, first there's the guest count. She originally booked for 150 people, but yesterday she called demanding we accommodate 230 guests. That's not just a matter of adding chairs, we're talking about fire code violations, catering logistics, parking capacity. Our maximum occupancy is 180, period. I frowned, pulling up Jessica's wedding website on my phone. The RSVP page still showed 147 confirmed guests as of Christmas Eve. Where are the additional 80 people coming from? She says her fiancé's family surprised them by bringing extra relatives from out of town. Apparently his grandmother decided to invite her entire bridge club, and his uncle is bringing his business partners. Ms. Hartwell insisted we figure it out because the customer is always right. This was news to me. Jessica had been complaining for months about Marcus's small, boring family and how she wished they were contributing more guests to make the wedding feel important. Apparently she'd gotten her wish in the worst possible way. What did you tell her? That we can't accommodate more than 180 people, and any changes to guest count require 14 days notice and additional payment. She told me we were being inflexible and threatened to leave a bad review on every wedding website. I could practically hear Jessica's voice saying those exact words. What else? The alcohol situation. She originally booked our premium open bar package for 5 hours at $78 per person. But now she's demanding we extend it to 6 hours and add top-shelf liquor because it's New Year's Eve and people expect champagne at midnight. That's an additional $4,200, due with her final payment. When was her final payment due? December 23rd. Yesterday I had to call her 3 times before she answered, and when she did, she told me she was too busy dealing with her best friend's drama to worry about payments right now. My breath caught. She was referring to me. To my wedding. To the dress situation she'd created. The final balance is $11,300, Linda continued. Plus the additional cost she's requesting would bring it to $15,500. We've never had a client this close to their event date with such a large outstanding balance. $15,000. Due yesterday. And Jessica was telling vendors she was too busy with my drama to pay them. Linda, what's your policy for unpaid final balances? Honestly? We're considering canceling the event. Our contract clearly states that failure to pay the final balance results in immediate cancellation, no refunds. But it's New Year's Eve, we'd never book another event with 4 days' notice. Perfect. Jessica's greed and procrastination had backed the venue into a corner where canceling would hurt them too. She was probably counting on that. Has she made any attempt to pay even a partial balance? She sent us a check for $2,000 on Tuesday, but it bounced yesterday morning. When I called to inform her, she said her bank was being ridiculous and hung up on me. A bounced check. 4 days before her wedding. The financial house of cards was collapsing faster than I'd anticipated. Linda, I have to ask, what would it take for you to feel confident about this event moving forward? Full payment, confirmed guest count under 180, and honestly? I guarantee that Miss Hartwell won't create additional problems on the day itself. We have other events to consider. After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone for several minutes. Jessica hadn't just been careless with vendors, she was actively lying to them about me, using my wedding as an excuse for her own failures. The anger that had been simmering since Christmas Eve flared into something sharper, more focused. She destroyed my dress, insulted my character, and was now blaming me for her financial irresponsibility. Michael found me on the balcony an hour later, still in my pajamas despite it being nearly noon. Everything okay? He wrapped his arms around me from behind. Jessica's wedding is falling apart, I said simply. Good, he said without hesitation. After what she did to you, she deserves whatever happens. I leaned back against his chest, feeling the weight of what I was orchestrating. Tomorrow I'd make the final calls. By Saturday, Jessica would understand exactly what consequences felt like. Friday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Jessica. The voicemails started around 3 a.m., progressing from confused to frantic to absolutely hysterical. I listened to them while Michael showered, each message painting a clearer picture of the chaos unfolding. Asterisk 3:17 a.m. Sarah, hey, it's me. Maria from the catering company called and said they're canceling? Something about unpaid invoices? I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Can you call her in the morning? Asterisk. Asterisk 3:45 a.m. Okay, so now the florist is saying she's selling my peonies to someone else? Dorothy claims I never confirmed the order, which is insane because we literally talked about this. I need you to call her right now. Asterisk. Asterisk 4:23 a.m. Sarah, where are you? Derek just texted that he can't do the photography anymore because he doesn't have the right equipment for my vision. This is a disaster. Call me back immediately. Asterisk. Asterisk 5:41 a.m. The venue is being completely unreasonable about the guest count. Linda is claiming I owe them $15,000 by today or they're canceling my wedding. My wedding, Sarah. How is this legal? Asterisk. The final message, left at 6:08 a.m., was barely coherent through her sobbing. Asterisk everything is falling apart and I don't understand why this is happening to me. I did everything right. I planned everything perfectly. Please call me back. I need you to fix this. You always know how to fix things. Asterisk. I deleted the voicemails and poured myself coffee, surprised by how calm I felt. This was exactly what I'd expected, Jessica panicking when her problems could no longer be ignored or blamed on other people. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk this is Marcus Hartwell, Jessica's fiancé. She's having some kind of breakdown about wedding vendors. She says you're coordinating things? Can you please call me? She's been crying for 3 hours. Asterisk. Interesting. I'd only met Marcus twice, once at their engagement party and once at a group dinner. He seemed nice enough, though I'd always wondered what he saw in Jessica beyond her surface-level charm. Maybe he was about to find out. I called him back within the hour. Sarah, thank God, Marcus sounded exhausted. I don't know what's happening, but every vendor is either demanding money we don't have or canceling entirely. Jessica keeps saying you're handling everything, but she won't explain what went wrong. What has she told you about the vendor situations? That there have been some miscommunications about payments and contract details. She said you were going to smooth things over because you're good with people. But now she's saying everyone is conspiring against her. Poor Marcus. He really had no idea what he'd signed up for. Have you seen the actual contracts and invoices? I asked carefully. That's the thing, Jessica handled all the vendor relationships herself. She said she wanted to surprise me with how well she could plan a wedding. I offered to help with payments and logistics, but she insisted she had everything under control. Of course she did. Jessica never wanted help, she wanted credit. But only for the successes, never for the failures. Marcus, I think you need to ask Jessica some very specific questions about payment schedules and contract terms. Today. She's not exactly in a state to answer questions right now. She's convinced that everyone is sabotaging her wedding because they're jealous of her happiness. She specifically mentioned that Maria from the catering company sounded suspicious and that Dorothy the florist was probably working with competitors. The paranoia was setting in. Jessica couldn't accept that her own actions had consequences, so she was creating elaborate conspiracy theories instead. What do you need from me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Could you maybe call these vendors? Jessica says they'll listen to you because you're a professional event planner. Maybe you can negotiate some kind of payment plan or find alternative solutions? Our actual wedding coordinator bailed last week. Alternative solutions. Marcus thought this was fixable with the right phone calls and some creative problem solving. He didn't realize that Jessica had burned every bridge and bounced every check. I can make some calls, I said, which was true. Just not the kind of calls he was hoping for. You're a lifesaver, Sarah. Jessica is lucky to have a friend like you. After hanging up, I realized that Marcus genuinely believed I was going to save their wedding. He trusted me the same way Jessica did, as the reliable friend who always cleaned up the mess. Except this time, I was the one who'd made sure the mess was too big to clean up. My phone rang again 20 minutes later. Jessica this time, not Marcus. Sarah. Her voice was raw from crying, but underneath the desperation I could hear that familiar edge of entitlement. Thank God you're finally answering. This is literally the worst day of my life. What's happening, Jess? I kept my voice carefully neutral, sympathetic but not overly concerned. Everything is falling apart and I don't understand why. It's like every vendor suddenly decided to screw me over at the same time. Maria is claiming I owe her $11,000, which is insane because I specifically remember paying her last month. And Dorothy sold my peonies to someone else, even though we had a verbal agreement. That sounds incredibly stressful, I murmured, making note that she was lying about paying the caterer. Have you tried calling them to work things out? Of course I've tried calling them. But they're all being completely unreasonable. Dorothy actually had the nerve to lecture me about professional boundaries and respecting contracts. Like, excuse me, but the customer is always right? I'm paying her to provide a service. What did she say exactly? She said, and I quote, Miss Hartwell, you've changed your floral order 6 times, missed 3 scheduled appointments, and haven't paid your deposit. I'm not running a charity. Can you believe that? I'm trying to create my dream wedding and she's worried about a stupid deposit. I pulled up my notes. According to Dorothy, Jessica had paid a $400 deposit in July but owed an additional $2,800 that was due December 15th. Today was December 29th. How much was the deposit? I asked innocently. I don't know, like $400 or something. The point is, I'm a paying customer and she's treating me like garbage. Same thing with Derek, he's claiming he needs professional equipment that he never mentioned before. I think Marcus's family got to him and convinced him to sabotage my wedding because they never wanted me to marry into their precious family. Now she was blaming Marcus's relatives. The paranoia was escalating faster than I'd expected. Why would his family want to sabotage your wedding? Because they're jealous. His grandmother literally told me last month that she thought Marcus was settling down too young. And his uncle Robert has been making snide comments about my career ever since we got engaged. They probably promised Derek money to bail on me. This was fascinating. Jessica's mind was working overtime to create explanations that didn't involve her own behavior. She'd rather believe in an elaborate family conspiracy than admit she'd been treating vendors poorly. Have you talked to Marcus about this? Marcus doesn't understand how manipulative his family can be. He thinks everyone loves me, but I see how they really act when he's not around. His mother literally rolled her eyes when I showed her my dress design. What about the venue situation? Marcus mentioned something about the guest count? Jessica's voice immediately shifted into defensive mode. Linda is being completely unreasonable about fire codes and capacity limits. It's New Year's Eve, everyone knows you pack people in for a good party. She's just trying to squeeze more money out of us by pretending there are safety concerns. How many additional guests are we talking about? Maybe 30 or 40 extra people. Marcus's grandmother decided to invite her bridge club at the last minute, which is actually really sweet of her. But Linda is acting like I'm trying to fit 300 people in there. 30 or 40 extra people. Linda had said Jessica was demanding space for 80 additional guests. Even Jessica's lies had lies. When is your final payment due to the venue? Yesterday, technically, but that's just a guideline. No one actually expects you to pay exactly on schedule. That's what negotiations are for. I nearly choked on my coffee. A $15,000 balance wasn't a guideline, it was a legal obligation. But Jessica had spent so many years having other people solve her financial problems that she genuinely believed payment deadlines were suggestions. Jessica, I need to ask you something directly. How much money do you actually have available right now to handle these vendor payments? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. I have money, she finally said, her voice tight. It's just tied up in investments right now. My trust fund disbursement got delayed because of some paperwork issues, and Marcus's parents said they'd help but they're being weird about transferring funds. Everyone is making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Translation, she was broke, had been counting on family money that wasn't coming, and was only now realizing that her financial house of cards was collapsing. How much do you need total? Another pause. Maybe 25,000? 30 at most. It's really not that much money when you think about it. Like, people spend more than that on cars. $30,000. 4 days before her wedding. And she was comparing it to buying a Honda Civic. That's significant, Jess. Which is why I need you to help me figure this out. Her voice cracked again, desperation bleeding through. You're so good at talking to vendors and negotiating prices. Maybe you could convince them to take partial payments or work out some kind of extended timeline? You know how much this wedding means to me. She wanted me to negotiate payment plans for $30,000 in unpaid bills, 4 days before New Year's Eve, with vendors she'd been mistreating for months. The audacity was almost admirable. I'll make some calls, I told her, which was becoming my favorite lie. But Jess, you need to be prepared for the possibility that some of these vendors might not be flexible. They have to be flexible. It's my wedding. They have to be flexible. It's my wedding. Those words hung in the air between us like smoke. Jessica genuinely believed that wanting something badly enough entitled her to it, regardless of contracts, payments, or basic professional courtesy. It was the same logic that had led her to accidentally spill wine on my dress. In her mind, her emotional needs always trumped everyone else's boundaries. I'll see what I can do, I repeated, ending the call before she could make any more demands. But instead of calling vendors to negotiate on Jessica's behalf, I did something far more satisfying. I called them to make sure they understood exactly what they were dealing with. My first call was to Linda at the Millennium Ballroom. When she answered, she sounded resigned rather than hopeful. Ms. Chen, please tell me you have good news about the Hartwell payment. I'm afraid not, Linda. I just spoke with Jessica, and she admitted she doesn't currently have access to the funds needed to cover her balance. How much of the $15,500 can she pay today? Based on our conversation, I'd estimate $0. Linda's sharp intake of breath told me everything I needed to know. Ms. Chen, I have to be direct with you. We cannot host an event with this level of financial uncertainty. Our policy is crystal clear, no payment, no wedding. I completely understand. Can I ask what your cancellation timeline looks like? We need to make a final decision by 5 p.m. today to give ourselves any chance of booking a New Year's Eve replacement event. After that, we're looking at a dead loss on one of our biggest revenue nights of the year. Perfect. Jessica had less than 6 hours to produce $15,000 she didn't have. Linda, if you don't mind me asking, what was Jessica's reaction when you explained this timeline to her? She told me I was being unreasonable and that she'd never recommend us to anyone if we canceled her wedding. Then she suggested we should be grateful for the exposure her event would provide. Exposure. Jessica had tried to pay a premium venue with Instagram followers and wedding hashtags. The entitlement was breathtaking even by her standards. I think you should trust your business instincts on this one, I said gently. After hanging up with Linda, I felt a familiar surge of that strange satisfaction. Jessica was about to learn that exposure doesn't pay vendors' bills or cover insurance costs. My next call was to Maria at Elegant Events, who sounded like she was at her breaking point. Sarah, please tell me Jessica found the $11,300 she owes us. We've got staff scheduled, ingredients ordered, and equipment reserved. If she can't pay today, we have to cut our losses. Maria, I need to be honest with you. Jessica just told me she believes she already paid you last month. She what? Maria's voice rose an octave. We have detailed records of every transaction. Her last payment was the initial deposit in June. How can she think she paid us $11,000 with no record, no receipt, no bank statement? She also mentioned that her trust fund disbursement was delayed and she's waiting for family money that might not materialize. So she's broke. That would be my assessment, yes. Maria was quiet for a long moment. You know what the most frustrating part is? If she'd been honest about her financial situation from the beginning, we could have worked something out. Payment plans, reduced menus, alternative options. But she kept lying and making promises she couldn't keep. What's your next step? We're canceling the catering contract effective immediately. I'm not risking my business on someone who bounces checks and lies about payments. My staff has other opportunities on New Year's Eve. 2 vendors down, several more to go. But the most interesting call came 20 minutes later, from someone I hadn't expected to hear from, Marcus's mother, Patricia Hartwell. Ms. Chen? This is Patricia Hartwell, Marcus's mother. I hope you don't mind me calling directly, but I got your number from Marcus. I understand you've been helping with Jessica's wedding coordination? Her voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the stress underneath. I've been trying to help where I can. I need to ask you something confidentially. Marcus came to us this morning asking if we could loan them $30,000 to cover wedding vendors. When we asked for specifics about where the money was going, he couldn't provide any details. Jessica apparently handled all the vendor relationships herself. This was getting interesting. What did you tell him? We told him we'd need to see contracts and invoices before considering any financial assistance. We're not wealthy people, Ms. Chen. $30,000 is our entire emergency fund. But when Marcus asked Jessica for the paperwork, she became extremely upset. Upset how? She accused us of trying to sabotage her dream wedding and said we were looking for excuses not to help them. She told Marcus that if his family really loved him, we'd write the check without asking questions. The manipulation was textbook Jessica. Create a crisis, demand an immediate solution, then attack anyone who asked for basic accountability. Have you seen any of the vendor contracts yourself? That's just it, we're not sure any legitimate contracts exist. Marcus mentioned that their photographer is his cousin Derek, working without a written agreement. The venue keeps calling about payments that are weeks overdue. And Jessica told my mother-in-law that the florist was being difficult about deposits she claimed to have already paid. Patricia Hartwell was putting together the same picture I'd been watching develop all week. Jessica's wedding wasn't falling apart due to vendor conspiracy or family sabotage, it was collapsing under the weight of her own lies and financial irresponsibility. Mrs. Hartwell, what are you planning to do? We're not giving them the money. I know that sounds harsh, but Jessica has been challenging to deal with throughout their engagement. This wedding crisis feels like a pattern of behavior, not an isolated incident. What kind of pattern? Overspending, making commitments she can't keep, expecting other people to solve problems she created. Marcus is a wonderful man, but he has a blind spot when it comes to Jessica's financial habits. After that call, I sat in our hotel room staring out at the Chicago skyline, processing what I'd learned. Jessica wasn't just failing to pay vendors, she was actively trying to manipulate Marcus's family into funding her disaster of a wedding, using emotional blackmail and guilt to extract $30,000 from people who couldn't afford to lose it. The scope of her selfishness was larger than even I had imagined. My phone buzzed with another text from Jessica. Sarah, I really need you to call the vendors ASAP. Marcus is being weird about money and his parents are being completely unhelpful. You're literally my only hope right now. She was right about one thing, I was her only hope. I just wasn't the kind of hope she was expecting. By Friday evening, I'd become the eye of Hurricane Jessica. She called me 14 times, left 8 voicemails, and sent 37 increasingly frantic text messages. But the most revealing communication came at 7:43 p.m., when she accidentally sent me a voice memo she'd intended for Marcus. Babe, Sarah is being so unhelpful right now. Like, I specifically asked her to fix the vendor situation and she's just making excuse after excuse about why they won't negotiate. I'm starting to think she's jealous that my wedding is supposed to be more extravagant than hers was. She probably told them not to work with me because she can't stand that I chose better vendors and a better venue. I mean, the Palmer House for a reception? So basic. The Millennium Ballroom is obviously superior, but now she's probably sabotaging, *. The memo cut off abruptly, followed immediately by a text, *OMG sorry that was meant for Marcus. Just ignore that, I'm super stressed and not thinking clearly lol*. I screenshotted everything, marveling at how Jessica's mind worked. Even in crisis, she couldn't resist comparing our weddings or diminishing my choices. The Palmer House, where we'd held our reception and where I was currently staying, was apparently basic compared to her venue that was about to cancel her contract. But more importantly, she was now actively telling Marcus that I was sabotaging her wedding. Perfect. Michael returned from his dinner meeting with college friends around 9 p.m., finding me cross-legged on our suite sofa with my laptop open and vendor spreadsheets displayed across the coffee table. You look like you're planning a military campaign, he observed, loosening his tie. Something like that. I showed him Jessica's accidental voice memo. His eyebrows climbed higher with each word. She's blaming you for her vendor problems? After asking for your help? She needs a villain for her story. I'm convenient. I pulled up my timeline of vendor calls. Linda at the venue gave her until 5 p.m. today to pay $15,500. It's now 9:07 p.m. So her venue is definitely cancelled? I assume so, but she hasn't announced it yet. She's probably still hoping for a miracle. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. Jessica's contact photo, a selfie from her bachelorette party where she's wearing a plastic tiara, filled the screen. Answer it, Michael said, settling beside me with obvious anticipation. Put it on speaker. Sarah, thank God. Jessica's voice was hoarse, probably from hours of crying. I need you to do something for me. It's really important. What's going on? The venue situation is complicated. Linda is being completely unreasonable about payment timing, so I need you to call some of your venue contacts and see if anyone has New Year's Eve availability. I blinked at Michael, who was struggling not to laugh. Jessica, it's December 29th. New Year's Eve is in 2 days. I know it's last minute, but you have connections. Remember how you got us that private room at Gibson's for my engagement party when they were supposedly booked solid? You're amazing at making impossible things happen. She was referring to a dinner reservation I'd secured 8 months in advance, not a miracle booking. But in Jessica's revisionist history, I was apparently a magician who conjured venues from thin air. How many guests are we talking about? I asked, though I already knew the answer would be inflated. 200 max. Maybe 220 if Marcus's extended family decides to come. Nothing too crazy. 220 guests. 48 hours notice. New Year's Eve. What's your budget for a replacement venue? Silence stretched across the line. Well, that depends. What do you think is reasonable? Jessica, I need actual numbers. Venues require deposits. Right, of course. I was thinking maybe 5,000? 7 at most? I mean, it's just one night, and most of the setup would be simple since we're working with a shorter timeline. $7,000 for a New Year's Eve venue that could accommodate 220 guests. She might as well have asked me to find her a unicorn that takes payment in Instagram likes. I'll make some calls, I said, adding another lie to my growing collection. You're the best. I knew I could count on you. Oh, and Sarah? I'm really sorry about that voice memo earlier. I was just stressed and saying crazy things. You know I would never actually think you'd sabotage my wedding, right? Of course not, I replied smoothly. We're best friends. After hanging up, Michael shook his head in disbelief. She wants you to find a venue for 220 people on New Year's Eve with 2 days' notice and a $7,000 budget? Apparently my reputation for miracles precedes me. What are you going to tell her when no venue exists? I smiled, closing my laptop with satisfaction. That's the beauty of it. I don't have to tell her anything. Reality is going to do that for me. Saturday morning arrived with a blizzard warning and 23 missed calls from Jessica's number. I let them ring while Michael and I packed for our delayed honeymoon flight to Maui, watching the snow begin to fall outside our hotel window. By 9 a.m., Chicago was transforming into a winter wonderland that would make any remaining wedding logistics infinitely more complicated. The first voicemail, left at 5:47 a.m., was Jessica sobbing incoherently about betrayal and conspiracy. The second, at 6:15 a.m., was her screaming at someone in the background, probably Marcus, about how his family had orchestrated this whole thing. But it was the third message, timestamped 6:52 a.m., that made me pause my coffee mid-sip. Sarah, I know what you did. Her voice was eerily calm, almost robotic. I figured it out. You talked to my vendors. You told them not to work with me. Marcus found your number in Maria's call log from Christmas Day, and Dorothy let it slip that someone claiming to be my coordinator had been asking about contract details. You've been sabotaging my wedding this entire time. Michael looked up from his suitcase. She knows? She suspects. I continued listening to the message. I don't know why you hate me so much, but congratulations, you destroyed my entire wedding. The venue canceled last night. The caterer won't return my calls. I have no flowers, no photographer, and now Marcus is asking questions about things that are none of his business. I hope you're happy. The message ended abruptly, followed immediately by another one. Oh, and Sarah? I called the Palmer house. I told them exactly what kind of person you really are. How you smile to people's faces while stabbing them in the back. How you pretend to be helpful while secretly destroying everything they care about. I made sure they know what a manipulative, vindictive bitch their valued guest really is. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Chicago weather. Jessica was escalating, lashing out in ways that could actually affect my life, not just her wedding. My phone rang again, Jessica's number. This time I answered. You picked up, she said, her voice thick with exhaustion and rage. I wasn't sure you'd have the courage. What do you want, Jessica? I want you to admit what you did. I want you to tell me why my best friend since college decided to destroy the most important day of my life. The accusation hung between us like a blade. Part of me wanted to confess everything, to explain exactly how her own actions had created this disaster, how I'd simply refused to fix her mistakes for once. But a larger part of me was curious to see how far she'd take this. I don't know what you're talking about, I said carefully. Bullshit. You called my vendors pretending to be my coordinator. You gave them advice about protecting their businesses. You probably told them I was some kind of scam artist. Jessica, your vendors canceled because you owe them money you don't have. That's not my fault. I would have figured out the money. I always figure it out. But you didn't give me the chance because you were too busy playing sabotage games. The snow was falling harder now, coating Michigan Avenue in pristine white. Soon, traveling anywhere in Chicago would be treacherous, another layer of complications for anyone trying to plan a last-minute event. Where's Marcus in all this? I asked. Jessica's laugh was bitter. Marcus thinks I'm having a mental breakdown because I can't explain why every vendor suddenly turned against me at once. He's threatening to postpone the entire wedding if I can't get my emotions under control. So Marcus was finally seeing the real Jessica. The mask was slipping, and her own fiancé was questioning her version of events. Maybe postponing isn't the worst idea, I suggested. Give yourself time to. No. Jessica's voice turned sharp, dangerous. I'm getting married tomorrow night, even if I have to drag Marcus to City Hall myself. And when I do, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you did to me. The threat in Jessica's voice sent ice through my veins, but before I could respond, she'd hung up. I stared at my phone, realizing that what had started as calculated revenge was spiraling into something much more dangerous. Jessica wasn't just angry, she was unraveling, and she was taking everyone around her down with her. Michael zipped his suitcase shut and looked at me with concern. What did she say? She's threatening to tell everyone what I did. And she's determined to get married tomorrow night no matter what. How? She has no venue, no vendors, no. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Marcus. We need to talk. Jessica is scaring me, asterisk. I showed Michael the message, my stomach dropping. I think I need to call him. Marcus answered on the first ring, his voice strained and exhausted. Sarah, thank God. Jessica's been ranting about you for hours, claiming you sabotaged her wedding. She's talking about revenge, about making you pay. I don't know what's going on, but she's not acting rational. What kind of revenge? She's been on her laptop all morning, saying she's going to destroy your reputation the same way you destroyed her wedding. She's drafting some kind of social media post about you being a fake friend and a professional saboteur. But Sarah, the scary part is she genuinely believes her own story. I felt the walls closing in. Jessica's social media following was substantial, nearly 15,000 Instagram followers, mostly Chicago area brides and event planning enthusiasts. If she posted accusations about me sabotaging weddings, it could seriously damage my reputation in the industry. Marcus, has she actually admitted that she owes money to vendors? That's the thing, she keeps changing her story. First she said all the vendors were lying about unpaid bills. Then she claimed her trust fund manager was stealing from her. Now she's insisting that even if she did owe money, the vendors should have worked with her instead of conspiring with you. I could hear Jessica shouting something in the background, her voice shrill and desperate. She's demanding I choose between her and my family, Marcus continued quietly. My parents asked reasonable questions about the money, and now she's saying if I don't defend her against them, it proves I never loved her. What are you going to do? Honestly? I'm starting to think my family was right to be concerned. This wedding crisis has shown me sides of Jessica I've never seen before. The lying, the manipulation, the way she's treating everyone who doesn't immediately solve her problems. There was a crash in the background, followed by Jessica screaming, "Give me that phone." "Who are you talking to?" The line went dead. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications. Jessica had posted a 1,000-word Instagram story titled, "When Your Best Friend Destroys Your Dream Wedding," complete with screenshots of vendor contracts and photos from my own wedding. She'd painted herself as the innocent victim of my jealousy, claiming I'd systematically contacted her vendors to turn them against her because I couldn't stand that her wedding was going to be more beautiful than mine. The comments were already pouring in, a mix of support for Jessica and confused questions about the timeline. But what terrified me most was her final paragraph. "Sarah Chen thinks she's won, but I'm not going down alone." Stay tuned for the full story about what really happened Christmas Eve, and why some people will do anything to tear down their friends. She was threatening to reveal something about my own wedding. But what could she possibly know that would damage me? Then I remembered the wine stain on my dress, and Jessica's smug smile as she apologized. She was going to claim I staged the whole thing. My hands shook as I screenshotted Jessica's Instagram post before she could delete it. The comments were multiplying by the minute, wedding vendors I knew professionally, brides from my own network, even some of Michael's colleagues who followed Jessica's perfectly curated lifestyle content. Asterisk at Chicago Bride Life, OMG Sarah Chen planned my sister's wedding last year, she seems so sweet. Asterisk. Asterisk at Petals and Stems Chicago, we've worked with both these planners. There's always two sides to every story. Asterisk. Asterisk at Millennium Event Space, professional vendors don't cancel contracts without cause. Just saying. Asterisk. The last comment stopped me cold. Linda from the venue was publicly defending her decision, which meant Jessica's accusations were already being questioned by people in the industry. But that wouldn't matter if Jessica followed through on her threat to reveal what really happened Christmas Eve. I called my lawyer, Amanda Cross, who answered despite it being 10 a.m. on New Year's Eve. "Sarah, I saw the Instagram post. How much of what she's claiming is true?" "The vendor calls?" "All of them." "But Amanda, I never lied to anyone. I just encouraged them to trust their own business instincts." "Did you identify yourself as Jessica's coordinator?" I hesitated. "I may have let them assume I was helping with coordination, yes. That could be problematic from a misrepresentation standpoint. What leverage does she have for additional revelations?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a call from Dorothy at Petals and Stems. I put Amanda on hold. "Sarah, dear, I'm calling because this Jessica girl is now claiming on social media that you impersonated her wedding coordinator to manipulate my business decisions. I want you to know that's not how I remember our conversation at all." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What do you remember, Dorothy?" "You called as her friend, concerned about vendor relationships. You asked thoughtful questions about contract terms and payment schedules. When I explained Miss Hartwell's behavior, you simply agreed that I should protect my business. Nothing manipulative about it. Would you be willing to document that conversation if needed?" "Absolutely. I've been in this business 40 years. I know the difference between coordination assistance and vendor manipulation. What Miss Hartwell is describing sounds like something out of a soap opera." After hanging up with Dorothy, I returned to Amanda. "The vendors are backing me up. Jessica's version doesn't match reality." "Good, but that's not what I'm worried about. Her threat about what really happened Christmas Eve suggests she has something else planned. What could she reveal about your wedding that would damage you?" "The wine stain." The deliberate spill that Jessica was about to reframe as, "What?" My stomach dropped as the pieces clicked together. "Amanda, she spilled wine on my wedding dress accidentally. What if she claims I staged it for attention or insurance purposes? That would be defamation if she can't prove intent. But Sarah, you need to consider whether continuing this is worth the legal risk. Sometimes the best revenge is letting someone destroy themselves." But as I hung up with Amanda, I realized Jessica wasn't just destroying herself anymore. Marcus had gone silent for 2 hours, her Instagram post was gaining traction, and according to the Chicago Weather Service, the snowstorm was intensifying. Jessica had approximately 18 hours to either admit defeat or find a way to salvage her wedding, and her desperation was making her increasingly dangerous. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Sarah? This is Patricia Hartwell, Marcus's mother. We have a situation." My blood chilled. "What's wrong?" "Jessica convinced Marcus to withdraw $8,000 from his savings account this morning. She told him she found a backup venue that required immediate cash payment. But when I called the address she gave him, it doesn't exist. $8,000. Jessica had just stolen from her own fiancé. Where is she now?" "That's what we don't know. She left 2 hours ago, saying she had to handle some business before tonight. Marcus is devastated, and he's finally asking the right questions about who he's supposed to marry tomorrow." The snow was coming down in thick, heavy flakes when my phone rang at 4:23 p.m. with Marcus's number. I almost didn't answer. I was emotionally drained and our flight to Maui was in 6 hours. But something in my gut told me this call would be different. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." Marcus's voice was hollow, defeated. I found Jessica's laptop open. "She's been planning this for weeks." My heart stopped. "Planning what?" "The vendor sabotage story. She has a whole folder called Sarah Revenge Project with screenshots of your wedding vendors, notes about your planning timeline, even photos she took of your dress after the wine spill." I sank onto the hotel room sofa, Michael immediately moving to sit beside me. "What kind of notes?" "Detailed plans about how to make it look like you deliberately ruined her wedding out of jealousy. She wrote out different versions of the story, first claiming you were jealous of her dress, then that you were angry she was using better vendors than you did. Sarah, she's been crafting this narrative since Christmas Day." The room spun around me. Jessica hadn't just been careless with vendors, she'd been planning to destroy my reputation from the moment she spilled wine on my dress. Every frantic phone call, every plea for help, had been performance art leading up to this moment. "There's more," Marcus continued, his voice breaking. "She has a document called Insurance Fraud Theory where she's planning to claim you staged the wine spill to file a claim on your dress. She found out your grandmother's gown was insured for $12,000. My blood turned to ice. Jessica was going to accuse me of insurance fraud, a federal crime that could destroy my career and land me in prison. All because I'd finally refused to clean up her mess. Marcus, where did she get information about my insurance? She photographed paperwork from your purse during your bachelorette party weekend. Sarah, she's been collecting ammunition against you for months. I remembered that weekend in Milwaukee, Jessica insisting she'd help me organize my purse while I was in the bathroom, claiming she was just being helpful. She'd been rifling through my personal documents, planning for this exact scenario. What else is in those files? Screenshots of every text you sent her about vendor recommendations. She's going to claim you deliberately steered her toward problem vendors who were predisposed to canceling contracts. And she has recordings. Recordings of what? Some of your phone calls this week. She's been recording conversations since Christmas, trying to catch you admitting to sabotage. My hands were shaking now. Jessica had been playing a completely different game than I realized. While I thought I was simply refusing to enable her behavior, she'd been orchestrating an elaborate frame job that could destroy my life. Marcus, you have to delete those files. I can't. She changed all her passwords and logged me out of everything. And Sarah? She transferred the $8,000 I gave her into some kind of cryptocurrency account. I think she's planning to disappear after she destroys your reputation. $8,000 converted to untraceable digital currency. Jessica wasn't just planning revenge, she was planning her escape route. Where is she now? I don't know, but she took her passport and 2 suitcases. She told me she was going to handle some final business and that I'd understand everything after her Instagram Live session tonight. Instagram Live. Jessica was planning to broadcast her accusations to 15,000 followers in real time, complete with fabricated evidence and recorded conversations taken out of context. I had approximately 3 hours to figure out how to stop her from committing what amounted to character assassination on a digital stage. At 5:15 p.m., as Michael and I sat in our hotel room surrounded by packed suitcases and the remnants of our shattered honeymoon plans, my phone buzzed with a notification that made my stomach drop. Jessica had tagged me in a new Instagram post, a photo of herself in her wedding dress, mascara streaked down her cheeks, holding what appeared to be a legal document. The caption read, *, when someone destroys your dream wedding, you have 2 choices, stay silent or fight back. Tonight at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'm going live to share the truth about Sarah Chen and what she did to my family. Bring receipts or don't come at all. #Justice for Jessica #wedding industry truths *. The post already had 347 likes and 89 comments in the 4 minutes since she'd posted it. My phone immediately started buzzing with texts from colleagues, friends, and family members who'd seen the notification. Michael read over my shoulder, his jaw tightening. She's wearing her wedding dress for a social media takedown. That's unhinged. Look at what she's holding, I said, zooming in on the photo. The document appeared to be some kind of legal letterhead, though I couldn't make out the details. She's trying to make this look official. My phone rang, Amanda Cross again. Sarah, I just saw the post. We need to move fast. I'm filing for an emergency restraining order to prevent her from broadcasting defamatory content, but given that it's New Year's Eve weekend, getting a judge might be challenging. What are my options if you can't stop the live stream? Document everything she says, screenshot her posts before she can delete them, and prepare for a long legal battle. But honestly, the damage might be done regardless of whether we can prove she's lying. After hanging up, I found myself staring at the Chicago skyline through our hotel window, watching the snow continue to fall. In 3 hours, Jessica would broadcast her carefully crafted lies to thousands of people, many of whom were connected to my professional network. Even if I eventually proved my innocence, the whisper of scandal would follow me for years. At 6:42 p.m., Marcus called again, this time with information that changed everything. Sarah, I broke into Jessica's email account using her old password. You need to see what I found. What is it? She's been corresponding with someone named David Brennan from the Chicago Tribune's lifestyle section. She pitched him a story about corruption in Chicago's wedding planning industry, using your supposed sabotage as the centerpiece. My blood ran cold. David Brennan was a legitimate journalist who'd written exposés about various Chicago service industries. If Jessica had convinced him she had evidence of professional misconduct, this could spread far beyond Instagram. When is the article supposed to run? According to their email thread, he's planning to publish tomorrow morning, New Year's Day, to capitalize on wedding industry interest. Jessica sent him evidence including edited versions of your vendor calls and photos of financial documents she claims prove your motivation. Edited how? She spliced together different parts of phone conversations to make it sound like you were explicitly telling vendors not to work with her. And the financial documents. Sarah, she somehow got hold of your business bank statements. I nearly dropped the phone. That's impossible. Those are confidential. She photographed your laptop screen during your bachelorette weekend when you were checking your business account. She got your banking information the same way she got your insurance details. The scope of Jessica's surveillance was staggering. She'd been systematically collecting my personal and professional information for months, building a case for this exact moment. Marcus, you have to send me those emails. All of them. I'm forwarding everything now, but Jessica's supposed to meet with Brennan at 9 p.m. tonight, after her Instagram live stream. She's using the social media attention to legitimize her story for print. After Marcus sent the email thread, I spent 20 minutes reading through Jessica's correspondence with David Brennan. She presented herself as a whistleblower exposing corruption in Chicago's wedding industry, claiming I was part of a network of planners who manipulated vendor relationships for personal gain. The most damning email, sent 3 days ago, included this paragraph, *, I have documented evidence that Sarah Chen deliberately sabotaged multiple vendor relationships to destroy my wedding. She used her professional connections and reputation to convince caterers, florists, and venue managers that I was financially irresponsible, despite my having adequate funds to cover all contracts. This appears to be part of a broader pattern of competitive sabotage within Chicago's luxury wedding market. *. Jessica had transformed my refusal to enable her lies into a conspiracy theory about industry corruption. And she convinced a real journalist that the story was worth investigating. At 7:23 p.m., with 37 minutes until Jessica's live stream, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Chen? This is David Brennan from the Chicago Tribune. I believe you know why I'm calling. My heart hammered as I answered David Brennan's call. This was it, the moment that would determine whether Jessica's elaborate revenge plot succeeded or backfired spectacularly. Mr. Brennan, I assume Jessica Hartwell has been feeding you quite a story. She has, and frankly, some of her claims are serious enough to warrant investigation. However, I've been doing this for 15 years, and something about her narrative doesn't add up. I was hoping you could clarify a few inconsistencies. I felt a spark of hope. What kind of inconsistencies? Well, for starters, she claimed she sabotaged her vendor relationships out of professional jealousy. But when I called those same vendors for comment, their stories don't match hers at all. What did they tell you? Maria Santos at Elegant Events said Ms. Hartwell owed $11,000 and had bounced a check. Dorothy Patterson at Petals and Stems confirmed that Ms. Hartwell had made multiple contract changes without payment authorization. Linda Kowalski at Millennium Ballroom showed me documentation of missed payment deadlines going back weeks. Each vendor had told Brennan the truth, that Jessica's wedding collapsed due to her own financial irresponsibility, not my interference. Ms. Chen, did you contact these vendors about Ms. Hartwell's wedding? I took a deep breath. Yes, I did. Jessica asked me to help coordinate with her vendors when they started having problems. But I never lied to anyone or told them not to work with her. I simply asked questions about contract terms and payment schedules. That matches what the vendors told me. Which brings me to my real question, why would Ms. Hartwell fabricate such an elaborate story if the vendor cancellations were legitimate? Before I could answer, Michael gestured frantically at his phone. Jessica's Instagram livestream had started early. Mr. Brennan, Jessica is broadcasting right now on Instagram. You might want to watch this before we continue. I opened Instagram and joined 1,247 viewers watching Jessica, still in her wedding dress, sitting in what appeared to be a hotel room with documents spread across a bed. And that's when I realized Sarah had been planning this for weeks, she was saying, her voice thick with manufactured emotion. She couldn't stand that my wedding was going to be more beautiful than hers, so she systematically destroyed every vendor relationship I'd worked so hard to build. The comments were flowing fast, a mix of support and skepticism. Asterisk at Chicago Bride Life, girl, why are you in your wedding dress for this? Asterisk. At Petals and Stems Chicago, we tried to work with you for months. At Millennium Event Space, check your payment records before blaming others. But then Jessica held up what appeared to be a bank statement. I have proof that Sarah Chen's wedding planning business received mysterious payments totaling $15,000 in the week after my vendors canceled. Payments from shell companies that can't be traced. My blood turned to ice. She was accusing me of being paid to sabotage her wedding. That's completely fabricated, I told Brennan, who was clearly watching the same stream. Those documents are fake. I figured as much. Ms. Chen, I've been tracking Ms. Hartwell's financial records as part of my research. She withdrew $8,000 from her fiancé's account this morning and converted it to cryptocurrency. When someone's actively hiding assets while accusing others of financial impropriety, it raises red flags. On screen, Jessica was now claiming I had manipulated her into choosing problem vendors who were predisposed to canceling contracts. But as she spoke, more comments appeared from Chicago wedding professionals. At Elegant Events G, we have documentation of every missed payment and bounced check. At Chicago Wedding Foddig, Sarah Chen has never interfered with any vendor relationship in 8 years. Asterisk at Windy City Florists, professional vendors don't cancel for fun. We cancel when we don't get paid asterisk. Jessica's narrative was crumbling in real time as actual vendors publicly contradicted her claims. Then Marcus appeared in the background of Jessica's stream, and everything changed. Jessica, what the hell are you doing? His voice was clearly audible. You told me you were returning the money. Marcus, get out. I'm in the middle of. You stole $8,000 from me. And now you're lying on the internet about Sarah when you know damn well you never paid any of these people. The viewer count jumped to over 3,000 as people realized they were witnessing a live relationship implosion. Jessica frantically tried to end the stream, but Marcus continued shouting in the background about cryptocurrency transfers and forged documents. When the stream finally cut out, David Brennan chuckled softly. Well, Ms. Chen, I think that settles the question of who's telling the truth here. Are you still running the story? Oh, I'm definitely running a story. Just not the one Ms. Hartwell was hoping for. The next morning, New Year's Day, I woke up in Maui to a Chicago Tribune article titled, When Wedding Planning Goes Wrong, a social media meltdown exposes financial fraud. David Brennan had written a thorough expose of Jessica's lies, complete with vendor statements, financial records, and screenshots from her disastrous livestream. Jessica's Instagram account had been deactivated, and according to Marcus, who'd texted me an apology and thanks, she disappeared entirely after their confrontation. The $8,000 was gone, but Marcus had learned the truth about who he'd been planning to marry. As Michael and I sat on our honeymoon suite balcony, watching the Pacific sunrise, my phone buzzed with messages from colleagues and friends who'd seen the article. My reputation wasn't just intact, it was stronger than ever. Any regrets? Michael asked, squeezing my hand. I thought about Jessica, probably hiding somewhere with her stolen money and ruined reputation, facing potential fraud charges and a destroyed social circle. I thought about my wine-stained wedding dress, hanging in our closet back home as evidence of the friendship I'd finally been willing to lose. None whatsoever, I said, raising my champagne mimosa. Happy New Year, husband. Sometimes the best revenge really is just refusing to be someone's cleanup crew. Jessica had destroyed herself far more thoroughly than I ever could have managed. And unlike her wedding, my marriage was built on truth.